My name's Nathan, and I'm partners with David here with the Hermetic Study. Since we're in the beginning of our podcast, I'd like to talk about our choice for the name of our podcast, Hermetic Study. One reason was we like it aesthetically, and then the other is because the Hermetic refers to secrets and esoteric ideas. Mm-hmm. And that's the definition we're referring to with the Hermetic Study, but we don't want to leave out the couple of other ideas that it also refers to things being hermetically sealed, and we're going to break that seal on our podcast, hopefully, or in our talks. And second, it brings to mind the person known as Hermes Trismegistus.
Wow.
And yeah, that's quite a name. It means, now I'm trying to remember. It means the thrice god, I think. Hermes, the thrice god, 3 times God.
So what happened the first time, second time, and then ultimately the third time?
I'm not sure, because when I was preparing for this, that just came to my memory just now.
Oh.
So Hermes Trismegistus was an ancient sage, one of the masters of the old mystery schools, and he's often identified as the ancient Greek god Hermes and the ancient Egyptian god Thoth, which I know it's probably pronounced Tot with the hard T instead of the TH, but I think Thoth sounds better.
To speak to the, his this ancient sage, was he genuinely considered a real person at some point in time?
He was considered a real person. I mean, I think a lot of scholars today would say he's more like a fictional character, parable. He probably was a real person at one point and then just had everything added to his legend, I would say.
Yeah. Okay. As you're defining it, is the old masters of the mysteries, who's this Greek god, and he's a messenger. Okay, so we're still talking about him, thousands of years later, and people still look upon him. And why is this more relevant than, say, Jesus?
I don't think it's more relevant than Jesus. I think Jesus is a perfect example of someone who is just like Hermes Trismegistus. It's just that Jesus is a little more popular. Okay. I think Jesus, like how you asked me if Hermes is a real person or not, it's the same with Jesus. Is Jesus historically a real person or not? I think the answer is the same for Hermes. He was probably real, from what I understand, and there may have been more than one person historically. That was Yeshua ben Yosef.
Ooh, I'm not familiar.
That's
Say that again.
Yeshua ben Yosef, and that's the Hebrew way to say his name. What it translates to is Joshua, son of Joseph.
You mentioned Hermes is also known as Thoth or Thoth, the god of magic and wisdom. So, what did that mean then?
Yeah, I think it's kind of similar today, where there's an esoteric side to things and an esoteric side to things. And for the
Exoteric, what's that?
As esoteric would be something that is known to a few and only relevant to a few, where esoteric would be known by many and relevant to many. So in the ancient mystery schools, that's where the priesthoods came from, and the esoteric side would be the priests that were initiated in the school. They had the esoteric knowledge, and they presented the exoteric knowledge to the public, and the public probably saw magic the same way we see it in fantasy movies today, like Dungeons and Dragons, Disney movies, things like that, where the priesthood had a different idea of what magic was, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And Thoth's role in that, he's a god of magic. Why was he needed in that aspect?
Well, he was needed because he was one of the teachers, a keeper of magic, and Hermes Thoth taught, he shared these things with you. And that was really the need for him, is to teach. So
how would that look? I mean, what would they be practicing in just in general? Like, I'm here for Thoth's teaching. What would that look like?
mostly it would be speculation, but it would be mere what was in later mystery schools, because it was always passed down. It became other mystery schools. What it would look like would be being initiated into a mystery school and learning the secrets, and basically going on an adventure of transformation.
Was that open to the lay people, or how did one get invited to such a situation?
It was not open to everyone. It was definitely kind of elitist at the time.
What would you do with that knowledge once you obtained it? Would you cast spells, burn incense, all of the above, in hopes to procure what?
All of the above. Well, I think the real goal was to go on this lifelong journey to transform yourself and become the best version of yourself. I think of it kind of like an ancient form of psychology and self-actualization, maybe. But, you talk about black magic, and you can definitely use these skills in not so nice ways. And with black magic would be the magician using it for wealth and lust and things like that. So there's a lot of different skills that you can develop with magic and do different things like divination and astrology and geomancy and alchemy and so many different types. And I think we could probably do a talk on each type that there is out there.
With advancements in technology, do you think magic is losing its relevance? If you went back 500 years ago, what was going on today would appear to be magical to those people. So is magic separate from technology? Can we have a distinction between the two?
I'll start with one thing that came to mind when you were talking, and that's Arthur C. Clarke's relatively famous quote, I think, where I'm paraphrasing, any advanced technology looks like magic to the primitive. I think that magic is still relevant today, and science, I don't think science is in opposition to magic, really, once you get to understand it. I think it goes hand in hand, religion, science, and magic. There's things going on in quantum physics in the past few decades that lead me to believe that science is getting closer and closer to matching the world that the magicians kind of described. This is still all from memory, but they talk about an experiment where they cut a particle in half and
Mm-hmm.
they were separated, but they mimicked each other's behavior. They were communicating and reacting to each other, but they had no contact. And another quantum theory that comes to mind is how the observer impacts the results of the experiment.
Right.
And I think that brings to mind the belief that reality is completely subjective and objectivity is the illusion. And I think magic is that's the paradigm of magic overall.
What does Aleister Crowley think about all that? Narrowing the conversation a bit.
Yeah.
What does that guy think?
Aleister Crowley. And we bring him up because he was probably one of the most infamous and famous magicians there are.
What brought him to the public eye, though? Really, what really, why is he relevant?
Well, he often would do very shocking things and would end up in the newspapers and things.
Whereabouts?
He's from England, and he was known as a world-class chess player, mountain climber, poet. To briefly talk about who Crowley is, he started out with, I can't remember the religion of his family. They're a very pious, strict Christian family, and he grew up with his mom.
Calvinists.
Something, to the point where it's like almost abusive, is so strict and uptight. And his mom would refer to him when she was yelling at him as the Beast from Revelations. And so later on in life, Crowley took that as one of his magical names, the Beast 666.
Perfect,
And
yeah.
yeah. And so Crowley ended up discovering magic through the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, which was a popular group in the end of the 19th century. And he just excelled and blasted through the grades of initiation. And
So if I was in the Hermetic, what was it?
Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn.
And this initiate comes along and I go, wow, I'm really impressed by what he's got going on. Why would I ever think that?
Well, for starters, a lot of the groups were secret or semi-secret, so you probably wouldn't know. But the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn kind of...
that guy's good at the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. He's better than anybody I've ever seen.
But you might have discovered them because they had a lot of famous initiates, like Bram Stoker, who wrote Dracula, W.B.
What do you think they were
Yeats.
getting out of that on a personal level?
Well, I think it was exciting and it was taboo, and they were looking for some kind of spiritual meaning to life. And there was, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn lays out a structure, a syllabus for you to follow to find God and find your spirit,
So somebody had to be telling him within his manager within that you're doing a really good job at the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn.
Yeah.
And we're really impressed with your efforts.
Yeah.
What are those efforts that is impressing them?
He'd be going through the rituals and the initiations, of course, but he'd also be learning all the material, the zodiac signs and what they mean, the astrology, the alchemy, the Kabbalah. That's a big one. Learning all of that and
define Kabbalah.
Well, Kabbalah, that's a big one too. That is Kabbalah is Hebrew. It's basically the Jewish school of mysticism, and they have the Hebrew language is one of the sacred languages of 22 letters to it. Most of the languages that have 22 letters in their alphabet those are generally a sign that that's one of the sacred languages. I don't know why that is, but it is. But they have an interesting language where every letter also is a number, and every letter is also a word. So you can put together a word, and it has a numerical value. You add up the numbers of each letter, and then
so each letter is a word, but you're also combining letters.
Yeah, each letter is a number.
Each letter is a number.
Yeah, and if you get a little deeper into it, each letter is also a word. So if you make one word, you're actually making a sentence because you could look at those letters and say, this is what this is. But
okay,
then if you look at it as a number, you look at this word and you say, okay, you add up this number and it totals, we'll say, I'm just making this up, 26. The word love, you add it up, it means 26. You take the word unity, add it up, it means 26. You take the word God, add it up, it equals 26. Then you meditate on these words that have the same numerical value and try to understand why they are related. And that's that basically is one of the skills that you do with the Kabbalah as a sacred language, is interpret texts and meditate on them like that. And there's other aspects to it too. It's too much to go into tonight, but they have this tree of life symbol, which is basically their path to initiation. It's kind of a catalog that everything in the universe fits into, every experience you have, every symbol that's out there, every feeling you have. It's a pretty big topic. The Golden Dawn.
So did that give him his credibility initially?
Yeah, he was he was wealthy then. He inherited his, and he was hanging out with all these socialites and members of the Golden Dawn, and they were seeing that he was very intelligent and comprehending everything.
I heard he was a bit of a sexual deviant. Was that frowned upon by the members of that group?
Well, there's people that love Crowley and there's people that hate Crowley, and he was a bit of a sexual deviant. He got into sex magic and
With the hopes of?
a lot of it relies on changing your state of mind, your state of consciousness. So the act of sex and the orgasm itself are altered states of consciousness. And so that's a really powerful moment where you can perform your magic. So chaos magicians use it a lot today, especially with their sigil work. And when the moment they have orgasm, they charge their sigils, which are symbols that they're charging to with an intent to do a specific something.
But where's the deviancy fall within him?
With him, he was definitely ethically he made a lot of choices that were pretty questionable. Some of it you could say was dramatic theater for publicity type things, and some of it was just clearly sex and drug addiction and basically abusing people and being kind of an asshole.
There were participants then when he was doing this? And did they know what they were getting into? And you mentioned abusing people in these acts. So was there repercussions to that?
Yeah. Well, he had a falling out with the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. Samuel Liddell McGregor Mathers was one of the founders of the Golden Dawn and a teacher of Crowley. And he had a falling out with Mathers, Crowley did. And they went to war with each other, like casting spells on each other, trying to curse each other and all this. And then, so Crowley ends up leaving the Golden Dawn because of all this and wanders exploring things. He goes and explores Buddhism and, he's traveling the world. He's really wealthy. And he goes to Cairo, Egypt, and to the pyramids there with his wife at the time.
Uh-huh.
And it's 1904, and they go in, and his wife starts speaking to him. It's a non-human entity with the name Awas that gives Crowley what's called the Book of the Law. Like Crowley, his wife dictates to him what she's getting from the spirit Awas, and it becomes the Book of the Law.
Would it be say like she's possessed, kind of like?
Yeah, you could say that.
And this is going on at a pyramid in Egypt.
Yeah, and it went on over a few days period, so not all of it took place. Some of it took place in their hotel room as well. And so he dictates this, or he writes down the Book of the Law and sits on it for a while, does his magical practices, but this becomes one of the most significant events of his life because it becomes the foundation of what you could say is, I would say there's people that would bark against this, but he created a religion basically, and he became the prophet of Thelema, which is to do with the will, basically. Well, I'll say a little more about that, but the Book of the Law, he created his own magical orders. The OTO, the Ordo Template Orientis, was a mystical Masonic group that was, I don't know if it was crumbling or what, but he ended up taking leadership of that, and he changed their rituals and things to align with the symbolism of his Thelema in the Book of the Law. So Crowley ends up getting all these followers and people that come to him to learn magic and to be taught. So he ends up over people that, kind of like a cult, and, has sex with all of them.
Yeah.
And
why not? What was the appeal of these people? What were they finding in Thelema?
I think that talk of going to these other states of consciousness, I think that's probably something that was a trigger for a lot of people because they're looking to feel something spiritual that they're not getting out of their normal religion, that they're going to church every Sunday. They're not feeling that holy fire of God in them, and they have these moments in the rituals and things where they feel it. I mean, and they will.
How did it differ from the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn? What was his distinguishing features, and why he would want to pursue that direction as opposed to what he was in?
The difference between the Hermetic Order, the Golden Dawn, and the OTO, I would say, would be that Crowley's group was specifically ushering on what he called the new aeon. It was the end of the age of Aquarius, and he was the prophet of this new age that was going to be.
Isn't Golden Dawn associated with Nazis, or the Nazis associated themselves with that?
No, the Nazis threw them all in concentration camps.
Oh, really?
The people that were in Masonic orders and things like that, yeah.
Oh, okay.
The Nazism did come out of some occult groups, the Vril Society and the Vril Order, the Order of Vril, and the Thule Society, and some other occult orders. But if you weren't in alignment with that, then you were an enemy.